question. Why did you choose to want to go into the RAF?
Well, as I mentioned earlier on, I and Rupert had been discovered with our amateur radio activities by Bill Green, who was a serving airman during the war.
Mm-hmm.
And he put us through all the bits and pieces that the RAF had in the way of equipment.
Okay.
Which was absolutely great.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, right, when you come to do your national service, Ray, you'll have to join the RAF. I'll give you a letter.
Okay, so he gave you a letter.
He gave me a letter which I took along to the recruiting office in St Albans.
Yep.
And when the man read the letter, oh, that looks good. Yes, we'll offer you a position as a radio mechanic, but you'll have to sign on.
Mm-hmm.
Because the course is 4 months long and you'll spend far too long being trained, so you'll have to sign on.
What does signing on mean?
Well, we weren't doing just national service,
Okay.
which was a 2-year program.
Mm-hmm.
To sign on, you meant you could go in for as long as you wanted.
Okay.
So I signed on for 3 years.
So you signed on for 3 years, okay.
Yeah.
Okay then, Dad, so you signed on in St Albans, and then what happened?
Well, we did a basic training of square bashing, and then it sent us off to the radio school, which was at Locking in Somerset.
Okay.
And we did a 4 months radio course down there.
Mm-hmm.
And all my friends were all posted to various stations in England.
Okay.
From Thurso in the north of Scotland down to the south coast.
Okay.
But not me.
Not you.
Not
okay.
me, and a couple of others. We were told, well, we don't know where you're going, but with no idea you're going abroad.
Right.
And
okay.
that was it. So they sent us off to the base up in Lancashire, where we're kitted out with all our overseas kit,
Mm-hmm.
all our KD and all of it. Instead of having one kit bag, we had two.
You had two, okay. So it was once you'd done your training, you then obviously had to get to Egypt. So can you say a bit about the journey of how you got from the UK and anything you remember about?
Well, it took us by coach down to a station in Hampshire, where they flew us out to Egypt.
Directly, or did you have to stop on the way?
Oh, we stopped at Malta on the way.
You stopped in Malta.
Yeah.
Okay.
To fill up.
To fill up. Okay. So, what would be really useful, and I'm sure you can remember, once you landed in Egypt, what was your first impression?
I don't know whether I like this place or not, but there you were. We was there for 2.5 years, so we had to make the best of it.
Okay. But I imagine it must have been quite hot.
It was a bit warm.
Okay. So when you arrived at your unit, which was whereabouts?
We landed at Fired and were shipped off to the unit, which is right next door, which was RF Abiad, which was a maintenance unit. It wasn't an operational unit, it was a maintenance unit, so workshop, where everything and anything was repaired or scrapped or what have you. It was 109 MU, and that was a maintenance unit.
Maintenance unit.
For everything.
For everything, okay. So, having arrived, what was your accommodation like? Where is it you're going to stay?
Well, we saw these lovely brick-built buildings, and I thought, oh, they're lovely. You're not in them, you're over there. And that was the over there was a tented site, and they were all big £160 army tents. Mm-hmm. 3 beds in a tent.
Okay.
And that was it, except ours.
Yeah.
Ours was a much bigger tent, and we had to pitch it ourselves.
So you had to put it up yourself. What 3 of you had to pitch it?
Well, no, there was about 4 or 5 of us, because that was the complement. That's the number of people that would be in that tent. That bit was 4 or 5 of us,
okay.
And that was it.
So.
But I was there for about a fortnight, I suppose, and I was taken ill and had to go down to a military hospital. And when I came back from the military hospital, they said, "You're not in that tent anymore. You're in one of the billets."
Okay, because they wanted to keep you well. So you hadn't really long been there when you
I hadn't been long.
No.
No.
Glandular fever. It sounds like it was glandular fever. So then when you came back out, they obviously didn't want you to get sick, so they put you in somewhere that was a bit more luxurious.
Oh yes, much. Yeah, the billet was mainly telefonists, and they were working on a 24-hour program.
Yeah.
You know, they was here and for 8 hours, and then move off to another. So there was always people moving in and out of the billet, and they put me in that billet mainly as a, I don't know, wasn't in charge, but I was there to make sure that everything was done in accordance with the laundry was put out on the Tuesday and all the rest of it.
So
you just had to be, just there as a bit of a billet orderly.
Yeah, or a coordinator really.
Yeah.
A coordinator, okay. So, it was at that point that you met a friend called Tom.
Yes, so I met Tom, but that was probably 2 or 3 weeks after that, because I got involved with the Scouts. That was the thing. I noticed that there was a Scout group on the camp, and I thought, well, how can there be Scouts on here? Scouts are for the youngsters, and we're all men. No, it doesn't make sense. But that was the families' camp was up the other end of the building, other end of the camp to where we were, and there was boys and girls of all ages, and there was a cutback for the younger boys, and a scout troop for the older ones.
Okay. So you were in the Scouts. So you'd volunteered. Just to recap, you were there. Really excited to find out there was Scout troops, but wondering why on earth would there be Scout troops. But you found out it was actually for the children of the servicemen and officers. But being back in time then, it was Scouts were boys and Girl Guides were for the girls. Okay, so roughly how many boys would you have had in your troop?
Well, about 12 or 14 was an average.
Okay.
But it varied, because you've got people were posted away and onto the camp, so your numbers varied.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter.
And how often did you run the packs? How often did you run the?
Well, we had 2 meetings a week.
2 meetings, okay, yeah.
One on a Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
And one on a Saturday afternoon.
Okay, so 2 different times of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whereabouts did you used to run the meetings?
Well, we had our own scout hut.
Okay.
Yeah. It was an old build. It was an old packing case that had been converted years before I arrived there. Oh yes, but it was a nice little hut.
Okay.
And we had our own electricity supply, which used to plug in to the school, which is right next door.
Okay.
And nobody knew.
So you used to tap into the electricity?
We tapped into electricity, but that was it.
Okay. And can you say, what kind of things did you do? What kind of activities did you do with the Scouts?
Well,
can you think? Give some examples.
Well, in those days you had a set programme.
Okay.
You did your tenderfoot, and you had 6 tests for that.
What's tenderfoot?
That was the basic. Your basic scouting was for the. You did your tenderfoot and you were enrolled as a scout, and then you went to second class, and that was about 10 or 12 different sections, and everybody had to do the same. There was no. Well, you didn't choose. You had no choice in those days. There was a set programme, and that's what you followed. And then you went from second class to first class, a little bit more advanced, a little bit longer, but it was, again, you had to do what was in the book. You couldn't deviate.
So would you say it was quite strict then?
It was very strict, yeah.
And very structured?
Well, yeah, it's one of those things, you know. You just didn't worry about it. You just did it.
And was it enjoyable?
Oh yes.
And
Yes.
Can you remember making any other friends? You said that you had a friend called Tom who volunteered.
Yeah.
Can you remember any of the other
Oh,
people
there was
that helped?
we gathered quite a lot of interest from various other sections of the camp, because I put a note up on a notice board in the YMCA, in the NAFI and places like that. Scouts meet on a Tuesday night, pop along and see us, and before I knew it was, we had something like about half a dozen or 8 people. Some were on shift work. That was the annoying part about it. You couldn't say there would be Scouts every Tuesday night or Wednesday night. You couldn't say that, because their life was governed by the service format, you know.
Okay.
They worked round the clock.
Okay. So can you...
But I didn't.
You didn't?
I was in the workshop.
9 till 5?
Well.
Ish.
Yeah.
So with the Scouts, did you ever go on any camps outside of where you were? Did you ever go on any trips or?
Oh yes.
Right. Can you remember a little about any of the trips or places that you went to?
Oh, I certainly can. It was exciting, because they'd arranged. It was all arranged. A note came through. We want some Scouts to go to the Jamboree in Cyprus.
Okay.
They must be, if they're servicemen, they must be on. They must be regulars, because it was the amount of leave that you had. I was on a month's leave. A national serviceman would be on 2 weeks' leave, and so it'd be a bit difficult if they go away for a week. You know, your timing was a bit.
Yeah. Okay. So you had longer.
I had longer to
okay.
do it. So.
And the Jamboree was in Cyprus.
Well, that was it. And we went across to Cyprus and camped just outside of Nicosia, and there was Scouts from all around the Middle East, because it was a coming of age Jamboree. Scouting had been in existence for 21 years in Cyprus, and this was a big celebration.
Okay.
And so we went.
And what do you remember about the Jamboree, apart from the Scouts from the Middle East? Can you remember anything particularly exciting about it, or?
Yes, getting to know and getting to meet Scouts from other parts of the Middle East. A lot were English speaking.
Yeah.
Most of those people from Cyprus, they all spoke English for some reason or other. They might have been Greek, they might have been Turkish, but they all had a knowledge of English. And they came from all around the Middle East, to this jamboree. So that was absolutely superb.
Yeah.
And we was there for a week.
Okay.
And we had been packed up.
Yeah.
Left all our kit, all the tents and cooking pots and bits and pieces on the site, because the army had provided us with all the camping equipment.
Right.
We're going to come travel from Egypt to Cyprus, a load of kit. It was all
So it was all there. How did you get from Egypt to Cyprus, out of interest?
We went in what was known as a corvette, a flat bottom boat. Oh dear. I remember that trip. It was sickening, to say the least. So you had
seasickness?
Unbelievable.
And how long was the journey?
Oh, it took about 24 hours, I suppose.
24 hours of seasickness?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, not
continuously.
Not continuously, but
a bit of a rough crossing.
When you got to the rough parts, yeah.
Okay. So that puts you at the point that you've been to the jamboree and
back to Egypt.
Back to Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay. And
well, we didn't get quite back to Egypt. We packed up our camp, went back to Famagusta to get on a little flat bottom boat to take us back to Egypt, and only to find out that they would take the 24 scouts that we took with us. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. But what are you doing here? Well, we're going, not on this boat, you're not on the list. So they put the 24 scouts down and they took them, but we was listed as being 24 Rover Scouts. Mm-hmm. Scouts.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we can't get this. This is not right. Someone's made a mistake somewhere down the line, and they left us off the list.
So we left off the list. So what happened to you?
We had to go back to the campsite because the next boat was the next week.
Right. So you ended up staying in Cyprus an extra week.
A little bit longer than that. Longer than that? Oh, yes. Because we packed up again and all ready to go, and charged on a motorboat. Hold it, everybody, hold it. Why? The boat's broken down. So we had to, by this time, we just about had enough. We'd put pitched tents, we'd taken tents down, pitched them again, taken them down, and this time we weren't going to pitch them any longer. Yeah. So we stayed in the hut.
Okay. And
it rained.
It rained?
It rained. And it poured through the roof.
So...
But there you are. Never mind. We eventually got on the boat and back to Egypt.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've explained. Finally, you got back from Cyprus to Egypt, but there had been a change in the dictatorship or the government within Egypt at that point. So things became a lot stricter for you, and you'd said roughly to me that you were kind of almost only halfway through your period of service there, but perhaps you could just say a little bit more in detail about the kind of things your work involved whilst you were there, and what kind of things you were doing within your job role.
Well, I was a radio mechanic basically, and that meant repairing all and everything on the ground radio mechanic book. Now, bearing in mind, was in Egypt for a start, and it was a maintenance unit, and a large percentage of people that worked in that unit were all servicemen who had spent a good many years in the RAF, and they knew this, that and the other. There was no problems. That was us national servicemen, and we fitted in and did what we were asked to do.
But was it a good learning experience as well?
Oh,
to
yes.
learn from them?
Yes, you, because they put you on a job and you say, well, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's the book, read it.
Okay, so it's enjoyable as well.
Oh, yes,
And
yes,
interesting.
it's really was enjoyable.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time working on a piece of equipment that was, it was enormous. It was 3,000 watts for a start, which made it quite a hefty piece of radio equipment. And there was not many of them. There's one in various parts of the Middle East, and they were there as a beacon for planes flying in could hear that signal and know they're on the right course.
Okay.
I would imagine, and that was it.
So quite an important role then,
Oh, yes.
really.
Yes, and these pieces of equipment that were running for 24 hours a day,
Wow.
continuously,
Okay.
sending the call sign of the beacon out for aircraft to locate on.
Right. So how did that feature then, or in terms of your interest as being a radio ham, was there any crossover between that and your interest that kind of led you there, which was through being a radio ham?
Yes, I was interested in amateur radio before I went into the RAF.
Yes, I know, yeah.
But you had to qualify as a radio ham, you had to do a Morse test. 12 words a minute Morse, and I could not manage it. So I never bothered to take the amateur radio exam, because I knew I wouldn't pass that Morse test. Rather silly, but I could have worked on it, I suppose, and would have got it. My service would have given me the radio experience, and all I had to have done was the Morse test. And I could have been I'd have been a radio ham from that day onwards. But no, I didn't, and it wasn't until about 1968 that I actually took the radio amateurs exam, but it was they left the Morse test out.
Whoa,
you didn't have to do the Morse test.
Okay.
You only had half a license. You only were only licensed to operate on VHF, but I was something I absolutely relished.
You finally got there.
I finally got there.
Fantastic. And, I think the whole radio ham experience post national service in itself will be another whole chapter of history.
Yes.
Okay.
But
so, Dad, just another question. Did you at any point whilst you were there on national service actually have to go out and fix anything where there was any form of conflict or danger to your life or potential risk? Was there any element of that at all when you were there doing national service?
No, I was never in any danger at all. In fact, even though we had this restriction for a while, it all quietened down and we just carried on as normal, and everybody was quite happy with us doing that.
Yeah.
But it was very, very interesting, because I got around and I did quite a bit of other than my normal radio, because I got interested in communication and this, that, and the other. Right, you'll be the man. You can. We want somebody to look after our defence network.
Okay.
Oh, what's that? Donga. That is it. We've installed this radio telephone network all the way around the camp, connected up to the guard rooms, so that anybody on guard duty at night, if they had to make an emergency call, just ring the telephone, and it would go through to the guard room and they'd send extra.
Okay. Fantastic.
So this was it. But like all service life, like all service rules and regulations, it had to be checked. Not when it's fitted and a couple of days later. It had to be checked every morning to make sure that it worked.
Did you have to check it?
I was put in charge of checking all the field telephones and the radios that were linked up as well, and that's it. Great, wonderful. They gave me a bike.
Okay.
They gave me a bike to cycle round.
Wow.
Absolutely wonderful.
In the desert?
Yeah. Well, around the camp.
Basically.
Round
but
the
in the heat of Egypt?
Oh, we ran with it.
Yeah, okay. But you had a bicycle?
I had a bicycle.
Okay.
But this was all right. I was in the radio station checking that the phones worked and the radios worked. But somebody had to go around and pick up the phone and ring. So it was a two-man job.
Of course.
So I used to sit in the, what was the court martial room, as a good a place as any. I'd sit in there with my feet on the desk answering the phone, whereas my assistant would use my bike
and cycle
round the camp.
Very savvy. Okay. So just to kind of round this bit off, it sounds like you got a great deal from it. It was very interesting. It was a very memorable period of your life. So, but when the 3-year period ended, what happened then? When your service had finished, what happened then?
Well, when I was demobilised, demobbed, paid off, and I was still on reserve. I was still on a 3-year reserve, or probably longer than that, and I was getting a bit worried because just towards I hadn't been. A couple of years into my reserve, we had problems with Egypt again, and I thought, oh no, they're not going to send me out there again, are they?
Right. Okay.
No. So I checked up with the camp that I was listed to, and I said, I'm a radio mechanic or radio fitter, and am I going to be required? Possibly. Why? What were you? I was on ground radio. No. Okay. Forget it. We've got enough.
Right. Okay. We're going to stop because the memory's cut out.